You're listening to It's Killing Me, where two comedians unpack mental health history. I'm Shane Kenny, joined by my co-host, Ariel Jimenez.
Howdy, y'all.
We are excited today to have our very first guest,
Also a
Mr.
comedian.
Chai T.
Yeah.
He is a poet and comedian in LA, one of my favorites on the scene here.
Oh, thank you.
Chai, anything you want to tell our audience about yourself?
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Chai. You can find me on the menu of a cafe shop. Yeah, we could probe deeper. Get more,
Well,
less open-ended.
let's make like a couple of aliens and start probing. What
Okay,
are
yeah.
our questions? What do we got?
Oh,
So-
yeah, excited to be here. Yeah.
So, Chai, here on It's Killing Me, we like to ask our guests about their mental health struggles. When did you first realize you were neurodivergent?
I suppose it was in middle of 2020. Me and my aunt were watching my kid brother Richard, who was like 5 or so at the time, and he is also autistic, and so he had a struggle talking to people, he didn't say his first words till he was 5. It's not great eye contact, and I remember he had like obsessions with like certain like key facts of like, I mean, this guy could like tell you all this capitals of the cities in the world, and then just watching him like running around doing autistic things. I told my aunt, I'm like, hey, I was kind of like that kid when I was young, and then she said, we thought so too, and I was like, what do you mean by that? But anyway, that put me down a spiral hole of like, maybe I should also get myself tested, and then I did. It turns out, yes, I am on the autism spectrum disorder, and I'm also got clinical depression.
Woo!
Let's go.
What does that tell about me? I mean, I can't. I guess as a kid, you don't know what autism is. Like, you're just kind of living your life, and I don't know how to live. When I've known I've lived my life any other different. Like, this is just the way I've always lived my entire life.
Yeah.
So I guess the revelation, like just having this fact, I guess the label on me, it sort of just put clarity on. If I were to look back into my childhood and all these moments that happened, I'm like, this kind of makes sense. This wasn't the norm that most people go through. Most people don't speak their first words at the age of 5. Most people don't go through speech pathology and get pulled out of class to go through a different lesson than other kids. And a lot of people probably don't get as frustrated with other people when they get too close to their personal space and get into a lot of fights that they had to go into the principal's office every 2 weeks or so because some crazy stuff would happen. And I got mad a lot. I used to beat up a bunch of kids, in self-defense. But what else? That's about childhood. And then I just saw a lot of things just made more sense to me after finding that out about me. And anyway, that is a little tangent ramble. So
Thank you for sharing this.
something like that.
Thanks, man. That was powerful. God damn. Did you feel like a sense of was it like a sense of relief after you got the diagnosis where you're like, oh, everything kind of clicked, or was it just kind of like, oh fuck, what was the?
Sort of relief. I guess beforehand, I always felt like I never just belonged with the world. I just felt so out of place. I never fit in. I never enjoyed the same things that most people did. I didn't understand why people enjoyed loud music or crowds or the city, and how much sensitivity there stimulation there is with just the sounds and the lights, and then how much people do they disassociate a lot with that, and also just being I'd say sober and just raw dogging reality with I'm always engaged in, and it could be so overwhelming, and that people can kind of just live their lives like this so easily, and and then realize, oh, this ain't normal. This is what normal people feel like, that they can just hone in onto I don't know, I guess just go about the daily lives like this, So I just lived my whole life like this. I'm thinking like, why don't I fit in with like most people? And yeah, once I got that diagnosis, yeah, it definitely felt like a relief. I'm like, huh. And being diagnosed as an adult and having known that factoid for a while now, it actually made me feel like, you know, I feel like neurotypicals have a communication disorder. I mean, I'm sure it's like, wait, y'all don't say what you mean literally. You like to beat around the bush. There's always hidden subtext to what you're saying. And then I'm very open speaking about anything, but there's some sensitive topics that you don't want to talk about. But how are you supposed to know, like, what they're talking about? Like, if you ain't gonna, ask them questions. Like, we should be able to open and express, like, talk about anything.
Only a neurotypical person would invent sarcasm. I thought a divergent thought. It's like, yo, I'm gonna say what I mean, but not really. What?
Like, that's what I love about you, Chai. You're more frank than a hot dog.
Sorry. That's funny. I like that. More frank than a hot dog. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. For the record, I tapped on this and I wasn't supposed to. My bad.
Respect our producer.
I did. Didn't mean that. That was a knock on wood moment. I won't do those again.
So, you weren't diagnosed till you were an adult?
That's crazy. I mean, I guess, like, back then, what is accessibility to, like mental health and, like, diagnosis. Plus, even diagnosis for, like, this kind of stuff is, like, hella expensive. I remember it was, like, even with insurance, it's, like, $1,000.
Jesus.
Like, oh, my God.
Cost that much.
Yeah. Hey, America healthcare, right?
Rather just stay ignorant at that point.
We need money for weapons.
Yeah, exactly. So, America. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, you didn't know that stuff, and then, plus, you all see that thing on the rise where it seems like, it seems so trendy that people are being diagnosed now. Well, yeah, because they didn't have names for these things. People who were autistic, they were hanged and killed, and for being too abnormal, and also they were outcasted a lot. Like, yo, you think that 6-year-old guy who was like balls deep into trains and sped buttloads of dollars into it was just a goofy weird guy? Woo, no, that guy was on the spectrum, all right. Like, we outcasted those guys, called them too what was it? They have an award for, like, for being too knowledgeable. Oh, this guy's a know-it-all. Or this guy who says, oh, actually. And then we just, like, hated those guys. Yeah. But, like, why? I mean, if I knew I was going to be wrong about something, I would like to know that I was wrong about this thing. That's why, I feel like autistic people speak only facts. Because, like, they will only say something that they were absolutely sure that they are right in. And if not, like, when I ask questions, I'm asking for clarity. I'm not, like, attacking authority. Like, I just want clarity to know, like, what I'm saying is true or not. So, we got a hunk of more accuracy in that department.
Yeah, I feel like people need to, like, if somebody's asking you a question, I think, like, you can, I don't mean it's just me, but I feel like you can kind of tell when somebody's coming at it from a bad faith place, you know what I mean? But I feel like someone genuinely asking, like, what do you mean by that? I don't hear that often enough, so.
Yeah, I mean, we should be asking that more.
We should.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Just for clarity.
Yeah.
So, a lot of resources are available with the people who are affluent and have the right money for kids who are autistic. So, throughout school, you didn't have any resources or support for your condition.
Oh, yeah. I guess, as a kid, I didn't realize, like, why, I remember in elementary school, like, there were some, times, like, days in the week where they'd pull me out of class and said, oh, here, just go to this, room, like, across the, bungalows or something. And I remember, like, they had, I guess I didn't know what the word at the time was, but, like, a speech pathologist. And, like, to me, I was like, oh, they're just, like, showing me these fun little games of, like, alright, identify this thing, or use this in a sense. I don't remember the exact games, but I just remember that memory of, like, just, I'm, like, being pulled away to go see, like, this one person who I get to, like, play fun games with. And at the time, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then afterwards, I get, like, cookies and treats for being a good boy.
Oh, it's funny. I actually had the same thing, actually, weirdly enough. I would get pulled out of class and talk to a speech pathologist. But I think it was because maybe I stuttered too much. I don't know if it was... I didn't know that they had, like, other uses for those people other than, like, just stuttering.
Yeah. I mean, I guess speech pathology also works for people with, like, speech impediments and whatnot.
Yeah, because that's what I remember.
That, but, like,
I went through something similar. I was in special ed,
Oh.
Like, I was pulled out 1st grade, and then I was in special ed till 5th grade, and I had... Something happened. I guess I'd proven myself enough, or I'd learned to deal with my ADHD enough to be put back in general ed, but I still had like an extra study hall class because one of the side effects of my ADD was that my thoughts were racing so fast, it was hard for me to stitch together, like when I was writing, to keep up with them.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I would need to go through and rewrite stuff because I would leave out a lot of words. And because of that, I was in the special ed classes, I was with other neurodivergent kids who were learning to deal with their conditions.
Did you feel like you belonged in that class?
I felt like I wasn't struggling to keep up with everyone, whereas when I was in regular classes, I saw I was getting lower marks.
Yeah.
And that I had a much harder time focusing, and I was very hyper, and ways that... What's up, Phil?
Yo, okay, so I have a few questions actually now that I've listened to a little bit. First off, so at some point you had to have been you had to have been kind of diagnosed even at a young age that if you were going to a pathologist, that they're not going to just send you to a pathologist for no reason. They're going to try to find like the defining reason of why you need to see a pathologist, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so like what did they at some point in your childhood educational career did they like diagnose you with autism before you knew it yourself? Do you think that there was a moment that you just kind of maybe don't recognize as that moment or don't remember as that moment that was your diagnosis?
That's a good question.
No, I don't remember you had a diagnosis because, as a kid, who as a kid know what autism is? I mean, I guess nowadays, now that it's more open, and social media is a tool, and one of the great tools that came out of it was the openness and the fact that more diagnoses are happening because they realize, oh, it's okay to talk about mental health now than before, where it's like, oh, keep your emotions bottled up, don't talk about that. But yeah, as a kid, I remember some of the indicators were like my math and science, on the report cards, straight 4 was all around, and then English and communications and speaking was all 1s and stuff. And of course that was their markings. So there was that, and then the fact that I just got into so many fights, just nonstop.
When slap fights or Fight Club fights, I
got pulled into the principal's office a lot because
open hand slapping, closed knuckles, or more wrestling. I'm so curious.
I feel like you and I. I'm just realizing this right now. Sorry to interrupt. I feel like you and I are running on the same parallels because I swear to God, I had the exact same. Everything you're saying so far, minus the whole 4s across the board and the speech, but that's kind of because you get into fight. I got into fights a lot too. I'm kind of just here's. I'm like, am I autistic?
No, not every autistic is violent. It's also paired with
I know
family trauma because in my family we also beat each other up whenever we'd get into fights.
Yeah, and that's one of the things in my research that's hard with diagnosing mental illness is there's a lot of overlap because there's a whole subreddit of dudes who think they have autism, but it's just overlapping symptoms of ADHD, anxiety, and choice paralysis.
Yeah. Right. But that actually brings me to my second question, which if there was a moment and you were showing signs of violence as a child, was there no behavioral interventionist? Was there ever a guy that came to your house and was like, oh, I'm gonna hang out with you for a few hours?
Is that a real thing?
Well, yeah. Why do you think Phil's one of our education consultants?
Yeah. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
what
I
got a friend
do.
in the community who does child therapy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That's my job.
Sorry,
that's my day job.
I did not know they'd come to your house. That's the part that I was kind of
Or sometimes you could go to a school.
Sometimes you go to a school.
All members of the cast and crew here on It's Killing Me are well educated in mental health in different aspects.
So it was most likely part I went it was at the school because you have staffs on deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I was just I was just curious to wonder because I know that there are some really newer companies because, like you said, that there's a lot more diagnosis happening in today's age. So there are a lot more companies, but there are some companies that have been around for a while. So I was just wondering if you were able to access those resources as a child.
I mean, yeah, I guess I wouldn't remember that. I just remember like what my memory can remember.
No, I mean, like it was just a question that I thought of.
I mean, there's a thing. We block off a lot of childhood memories because of trauma or like unhealthy living habits that like you don't really think of until you're an adult and you look back like, huh, that probably wasn't. That was probably why I blocked that memory off. Yeah. So the one things I do, I just remember moments of like, just a lot of fighting. Yeah, I just remember a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling. A lot of yelling, a lot of fighting. Yeah, anyway, so there's a lot of that. Oh, okay, so what's the next?
Yeah, so.
That's about
what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions people have about autism is?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, honestly, just off of my opinion, I honestly think like neurotypicals are the ones with the communication disability, but it's because
I'm with you there.
It's because there are more of them.
We're coming for you, neurotypicals.
There's more of them than there is of us, which is why we're the ones told that we have the disability, because our disability of autism is more on how much of an inconvenience it is to their lives, and not about how much accessibility things that we need for ourselves. Which is honestly just like, it varies amongst people. I mean, also, the other thing is that the spectrum part of it is like, when I'm around the space and tell people I'm autistic, it's usually the ones who voice for autistic people is the parents. Like, they're the ones who are usually the voices, and they'll say, oh, it's usually my kids. My kids are the ones who are autistic, and it's a strain on my life. Like, they never talk about the perspective from the kid themselves, because they're usually they have they communicate differently. Like I sometimes feel like there's also autism language I got that differentiates me. It's just autism is just a different way to how our mind operates. Like I feel like my mouth is slower than my mind because my mind is like such an expansive universe. Like I feel like it just never it just keeps on burning bright, and it's got so much to give, but my mouth just can't keep up with it. And and a lot of people, autistic people, like they just communicate differently. Like they are very intelligent, but just not an intelligence that most people see.
I've heard people just, it's funny, that limitation you describe with neurotypicals, I hear it a lot in queer spaces. Like, 'cause I tend to roam in those a lot, and I've heard people describe queerness as a sort of freedom that straight people and cis people don't really experience too often, because there's a lot of like rules to being straight, there's a lot of rules to being cis, and it's you talking about like the whole like, oh, we're not the one with the problem, but you guys are. It kind of parallels what I'm also seeing in queer spaces as well, where it's like, hey, we're free, like we don't limit ourselves by like anything that you guys do. And I'm just kind of seeing the parallels here. Like it seems like in a way the sort of like neurotypical straight cis hetero way of being, there's a lot of like confines to it, as opposed to like just something as simple as just being neurodivergent, where it's just like, I don't think like you people, I don't limit myself to like just
social norms that you made up for yourself.
Exactly. Social norms are all made up.
Yeah, it's made up. Like what's right, what's wrong. I mean, like I like wearing pajamas outside because I'm comfortable in it.
100%.
Or something like that.
Yeah, and I empathize so much with what you said about my mind has so much to give, but my mouth can't keep up.
Yeah, and that's also
having
ADHD overlap.
Yeah, and I relate to you on that front of so much of like writing is me trying to get out the ideas right, because when I'm in conversation or when I'm in the moment, it's like trying to transcribe a punk song by hand of just the rate of information and data compared to what your hand or fingers are physically capable of putting down on a keyboard or on a page.
Yeah.
And I still have to do that, like I said, as a kid, of like rewrite stuff, because my first drafts are fragments of me trying to catch the ideas before I lose them.
Yeah,
I can see
exactly.
that.
Like, if there's something I wish technology was made, it'd be one that can take a video or a snapshot of what's going on in my mind. That sometimes my hands are too slow and my mouth can't like put it into words. Like, yeah, it's like that thing of having so many great ideas, but like just not being able to like pull that, like, just some way to just extract all that's in my head to just put it out there. Because I feel like my value, like I feel like my most valuable asset is my mind. Like, that's the thing I love about myself is I think I got a swifty ass mind. I love my mind.
Trying to get swifty.
I disagree with you on the I want my head projected. No. Let me transcribe it verbally and edit it out. Not
want to look at my browser history while we're at it.
Filters. I mean, I only shoot in RAW, no filters. But, yeah.
During a friend's performance, I got bored and fantasized about feeding Cheney to tar pits he caused.
I can see that.
That's
I can see that.
But I'm with you there, and the sci-fi fan to me, I'm like, yeah, that would be cool to like have seamless integration until you guys.
Yeah, that has to have been a Black Mirror episode. It has to have.
No, Elon Musk. He let a guy play Mario Kart with his brain, and it broke down like Twitter.
I think I heard about that. Yeah.
Oh, some of that. I mean, like
the Neuralink.
The neurochip. You're right. Neuralink. Yeah.
So, what are some healthy coping mechanisms you've had?
Healthy coping mechanisms?
Yeah.
For like what? I mean, I try to stay fit. I do push-ups, drink water. Yeah. I mean, it's okay to drink. Up to you. I mean.
Yeah, you mentioned sobriety earlier in raw dogging life. Are you raw dogging life, or are you doing a slip and slide with booze?
No, yeah, I'm raw dogging. Like, no, I don't really drink alcohol. I mean, alcohol is like, I guess one of those social norms where like people would tell you, oh, you gotta drink to have fun, be cool. I'm like, hey, it's also having fun.
You're not drinking the devil's piss.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what they call the devil's piss. God,
I've heard that. I've heard the devil's cabbage.
The devil's lettuce.
A poet I know referred to it as that.
Devil's piss.
I mean, it sure tastes like piss, but
How would you refer? Honestly, I feel like alcohol is one of those things that people only pretend to like.
Yeah.
Props to Zach Perlmutter for that line of poetry.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, I don't judge. I mean, I feel people. I mean, there are artistic people who would drink. I mean, I think it's spectrum. So, it's just I feel like all we gotta do is just enjoy, have fun. I mean, alcohol for it. All right, that's okay. But I'm good in that department.
What are some unhealthy coping mechanisms you've had?
Oh well, I mean, I'm talking about like the things that like autistics do well is hyper focusing. The amount of hobbies I got, like I invested a buttload of money into like my 3D printing, into my climbing gear.
Yeah.
I got a bow, an arrow for myself for that department.
Archery.
And like for like the art side of things, like I mean, I love bits. I brought like props. I'm probably use it for a little bit, but I want to maximize its use. Like that tier list board maker.
Yeah.
I got bells. Oh, board games. Oh my god, I got a buttload of money invested.
And no, you know what? That one paid off because you got me into that magnet game cluster.
Yeah, there you go.
No, honestly, I do appreciate the fact you always have board games in your car.
Oh, yeah.
I mean? I'm used to people like always having like alcohol.
Dude, I love that you roll up with like people think you're gonna be busting out drugs and it's board games.
Board games.
Hey, that is my drug right there. I love games.
I was trying to say no meth, just Monopoly.
Yeah, Monopoly's ass, but
it really is. It sucks. It's a terrible game.
Yeah.
I do have I have another question.
Go for it, Phil.
I love this.
How often do you get to touch all of these activities?
Well, I like the hyperfixation. Like would just be a spur of the moment, happens for like 2 weeks and then just burns off. So things I try to keep consistent on with my 3D printer. Man, I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I haven't touched that in a little bit, but I still got that skill. But
that's right next to his bed.
It's
by
right
the
next
way.
to my bed.
If you haven't seen this, it's like literally right next. It's like on his nightstand.
Yeah, I mean my current hyperfixation is obviously the arts, poetry, writing.
I've been seeing you've been out on a lot of different
This man
spots.
just came from San Diego.
What were you doing in San Diego?
Oh yeah, I was doing a headlining for a poetry mic.
What was the mic?
It was Poets Underground.
Poets Underground?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Was the mic underground?
No. Well,
metaphorically,
Sure.
in name only.
As in, like, there were about 20 people there at the time? Yep.
Probably not a good idea to have an underground mic on a fault line stage.
You know what? It's not their fault. It just wasn't heavily advertised.
Where in San Diego was it? Was it like San Onofre,
Queen Beach.
San Diego, or like downtown?
Queen Bee. The Queen Bee?
That
It was like North Park.
North Park, yeah.
Yeah, North Park. Those areas.
I mean,
no,
yeah.
I let me use my hotel discount.
Oh, gotcha.
So what is it? I got a hotel in the area, which was
Yeah,
pretty
but it's
cool.
where they have the San Diego Poetry Slams.
oh cool.
Yeah. But it was still worth a trip.
Rudy Francisco's San Diego scene, right?
Yeah.
Your friends from San Diego?
Yeah.
Really? That's crazy.
Well, I've seen him there. Yeah. Okay. And yeah.
So, speaking of San Diego, It's Killing Me is going to be in San Diego for Comic-Con 2024. Phil and I will be there in cosplay. Come, find us. We're going to be asking questions about mental health, giving out stickers and merch. Look for the 4th Hokage and the 4th Raikage. We hope to see you there.
Man, that was a segue.
That was a hell of a segue.
Yeah, nice.
Dude, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be
Seamless
funny?
self-promotion.
No, honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to the day. Wouldn't it be funny this kid's sponsorship and being like, yeah, I try to come clean. Hold that thought. If you want to come clean, try these new
Try this Ajax.
Try Subarus,
Yeah.
the perfect thing for coming clean.
And just be like, yeah, man, I don't feel healthy. Hold on a second. So Blue Apron. Just like wait till that.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all want to see more wall decor? You want to see Phil on camera?
You want to see
Patreon.
more?
Buy the merch.
That's true. And unlike Watcher TV, this won't go to a separate thing. You won't see us pulling that.
Yeah.
Back to the show.
But yeah, I mean, the hyperfixation. So that's one thing I love about people. I mean, I tell you, Autistic people are a whole lot more fun. Like, just seeing someone have a passion for something that they can rant on about for like an hour on end, because also
Okay,
my
now
capacity.
it's starting to hit into my territory.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I know, like, there's also, like, an ADHD overlap, but, that's why I thought I call it, like, ADHD. But, like, yeah, the hyperfixations of, like, being able to do, like, a full research study on a specific topic and just be, like, so balls deep into that topic. It's, it's great. Like, yeah, you have a passion for something. You, like, yeah, just have a drive, and,
To be honest,
that's great.
To be honest, I feel like that's one of the main things I think that comes with being an artist. Like, I realized this, like, when I was, like, getting into the arts in, like, my early to mid-20s, was I feel like these are the only adults that I meet that genuinely still have, like, passion.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, art's not a choice, but a compulsion to create.
yeah.
Like, you think we do this
Yeah.
for money? Yo,
It's like when I've met I've met, like, people who will say to me, and it's usually, like, affluent and more upper class people say, oh, I want to make art. And it's, you have time and money.
Yeah.
I know so many people making amazing things, and they're poor, but they find a way. They write and they work 2 jobs, and it's one of those things of, if it's truly aching at you, you will find some time to squeeze it in a little bit. And I view people who make art in 2 categories on a very broad term. There's many more distinctions and descriptions, but very loosely in this context of the people who want to make art because they appreciate the aesthetic and like stuff on the wall, and then the people who need to make art. The people who will go completely insane, abuse substances, be menaces to society if they do not have an outlet for what's happening internally or for how they're perceiving things.
I mean, it always weirds me out whenever I meet people who even, like, aren't artists. Because, like, in my head, I'm like, how do you not have, like, something you want to say? Like, even, like, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy that
You just see things and keep them to yourself? What the fuck?
And, that's okay. Like, for people who love that lifestyle of just existing and being peaceful and just living life day to day without having every day needing to be meaningful, I mean, that's an okay lifestyle to appreciate for to start after as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I don't know. I think everybody's an artist. It's just not everyone has made art.
I don't know. I slightly disagree. Well,
Yeah, I think anyone can be an artist, and I think a lot of people can make art, but I think how many people have that, like, primal need for their sanity to express,
I think, like,
to reiterate and reflect on the world, because there's times where doing a painting or going on stage with nothing prepared I was able to see things more clearly and find peace of mind than I could in any therapy session, in any hug. It was through those mediums I was able to disassemble the world and piece it back together in a way that I could make sense of it and come to terms with it.
Yeah, no, I could agree to that. I guess like because you're describing it as like a need, like you need to do it. And my whole thing is like I think it's just varying degrees of comfort zone. But my whole thing is like I think existence in of itself is an art. I think like how people even just like there's things that I find art in that maybe like they require. Like for example, I love, this is gonna be weird, but like I like seeing just how someone maneuvers in a new space. That's kind of like an art to me. You know what I mean? Like let's say I put you in a room and you don't know anybody. How are you going to react in that room? You know,
back against the wall.
Back against, you know, like
go outside to smoke 3 times.
You know, like a part of some people would do that, and even that would be like that. I still like, I don't know, because I've always been a people watcher. So even just something as simple as just like how someone just maneuvers to me, like that to me is art. Like to me, it's like I think everybody has the capacity to be an artist, but yeah, maybe they just don't feel the need to do it. Yeah.
And there's everyone has their soul in life. It could be like in engineering, it could be in sciences, it could be like medicine. Like I do this because I want to care about people, help people, or improve the world, advance society. There's always a place and a spot for everyone, and everyone just has their soul in life.
Wonderfully said. Final question before we unpack this. Phil, what's up?
Earlier you were speaking of unpreparedness. I'm gonna need you to hide your phone better.
You know what? It's about time to come clean. To quote poetry sensei Matthew Cuban Hernandez, hopefully one of our future guests, maybe not after this joke. I'm going to be reading off my phone, but I'm going to put it behind this book so I look dope.
Has he ever done that?
Yeah, at an archery mic.
Oh. Okay, cool. Alright.
Archery is a mic in West Hollywood, if anybody.
Oh, archery.
Archery.
Oh, okay, that
Not
sounds
archery.
way more familiar.
Wonderful venue and dispensary.
Yeah.
We love you. Hope to be in touch with you soon.
Okay, I've been saying y'all.
So,
why y'all talking about archery and stuff? Okay.
Is it artistry? Am I?
No, artistry. I think.
Yeah, that might be artistry. I mean,
It's one of those.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Real professionals over here.
Anyway.
So final question before we unpack the history of this. Have you ever experienced any discrimination for your autism?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Discrimination. Well, I'll tell you, if it's something that neurotypicals do discriminate, then I wouldn't have noticed, because if something that they like doing is not being direct and telling me exactly what's on their mind, and that's what things that I really don't want to like talk about LA people is ghosting and not being non-committal, and just like instead of like wanting to be confrontational about it, they'd rather just sweep it underneath the carpet and ignore you. So if it's about discrimination, I think it's the thing where I just wouldn't ever know. I take everything at face value. I like to believe that in a world of people don't just lie to each other, and I can kind of just take people for their word. But I know people don't always say what they mean, and that has made me a little bit suspicious of the world sometimes. But I just know that whatever they're giving to me, I won't ever like give that back out to people. Like I will always be upfront and honest with people. I won't ever lie to anyone. I will be like, I won't put that kind of energy out there. So, that's something that I kind of hope like everyone should be starting after is just being a good listener, being empathetic, and just put yourself in other people's shoes and know that you don't gotta be a dick. Actually, no. You don't gotta be an asshole. There we go. The asshole is pretty more gender neutral, because everyone's got them.
Assholes are shittier than dicks.
Okay, well, don't be shitty. Just be nice. That's kind of the world I live in. And you might call it naive, but no, I call it like, I still like to have the hopefulness in me, because like, no, we can't fall into cynicism. Like, we just need more nice people out there. I refuse to believe that most of the people out here just suck. That would just be depressing.
I feel like this minute, I think that is a thing. I feel like you do have to like. I think like as you get older, it's kind of like, it's a conscious choice of like, do you like go around with a fuck the world mentality? Because I think we all have baggage. We all have like things that maybe have happened to us.
Well,
But I think it takes real strength to be like gentle and kind and still be like, you know what? Even though I've had some terrible experiences, I'm still not gonna let it down me.
Yeah, it's a thing where like
It's real strength.
I've had a terrible experience. I want to make other people feel that. Versus I've had a terrible experience. I want to make sure no one has to feel that.
Yeah.
So, some of my favorite people are middle children, bassists, editors, photographers, people behind the cameras, people who do not get loved are the people who absolutely should be loved.
We love you, Phil.
Yeah.
we love you, Phil.
Yeah,
Phil's behind the scenes helping us
love everyone.
work the audio and visual. He's also one of our education consultants and will be on the scene with us at Comic-Con 2024. Look for the fourth Mikage. So, speaking of...
There's going to be several fourth Hikages, but...
I liked what you said about empathy, and I feel like vengeance is so easy. It's the natural response, but have we not seen all throughout history that vengeance usually only hurts the innocent people around your target?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I struggle with my temper, and that's something I still wrestle with because it's natural to... Anger is there to rescue you when you feel helpless, but it will not guide you forward beyond getting you out of a hole and putting you back in another if you follow it too long. And to quote the wise Henry Rollins, cynicism is intellectual cowardice. And as a fan of Diogenes the Cynic, finding that line between critically looking at the world but having the humility to be like, someone's got to be nicer eventually. What Naruto says. Where's the hate has to stop somewhere.
He said that?
He says it when the Rasengan doesn't work.
Huh.
Never watched Naruto too much, so...
It's been a while.
I'll take your word for it.
It's for the geeks.
Oh yeah, okay.
Phil got it.
It's for the ones coming to Comic-Con.
So,
that was just wrestling gone out of my
anyone
mind.
want to guess where our story begins?
What's the...
Conception?
No. So, Chai, you mentioned that early on in history, people with autism were persecuted. And in the research I was doing, that was very true. And one of the hard things in identifying direct cases and direct incidents of like children who were living out in the wild or behaving like animals or had speech problems and outcasted by society, the line between, like, to say it was autism, it could have been schizophrenia, a variety of other things. So I wanted to pull away before mentioning going into specifics and labeling these incidents that were poorly documented as autism for fear of any judgment or being like, oh, you heard the story about the wolf boy. So really the first documented medical case of this comes from the 1930s. Pediatrician Dr. Hans Asperger is credited with defining and identifying autism. In 1938, Dr. Asperger gives his first public lecture on autism while spouting Nazi ideology uncritically.
Yeah, that's what the original DSM whatchamacallit one is.
I did not
It's called
see that cover.
Asperger's. Yeah. Yeah, this
Buckle
guy
up.
Did a whole. Well, I guess yeah. Tell the story.
Asperger wasn't a Nazi Party member, but he and his wife.
He wasn't, but...
But yeah, here we go.
I'm not racist, but... That's funny.
But he and his work were vital in discovering kids with disabilities who were experimented and or killed.
Jesus, man.
Yeah. Euthanizing stuff.
Yeah. Much of the Nazis got their eugenics inspiration from America's forced sterilization of black, brown, and indigenous women.
That's true.
And BIPOCs and queers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. That same year in America, Donald Triplett, who would also, 1938, not when America was doing their eugenics, just wanted to clarify. 1938, that same year in America, Donald Triplett, who would later be the first person diagnosed with autism, is examined by Leo Kanner, an Austrian psychiatrist based in Baltimore. That's a fun combination. An Austrian doctor in Baltimore just before World War II.
It kind of reminds me of like when you meet an Argentinian person with like a German last name. It's like, huh. Where would that come from?
So, Triplett, who would later be the first person diagnosed with... Kanner was unable to reach a conclusive diagnosis, but noted some similarities to schizophrenia. And that's what I mentioned earlier, is there's a lot of like overlapping symptoms as far as communication and sensory overload that doctors at that time had a very hard time drawing the line between.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like historically, you even see that even in recent, like, I was reading about this movie, I forgot the name of it, but it was a movie where they had two autistic people as the romantic leads. And the whole time, you know, the director was very good about like, hey, is the lighting good? I want to make sure it's not harsh. You know, it was one of the, I gotta find the name of it, but it portrayed autistic relationship really well. And then couple that with a few other autistic portrayals where the directors in the past have tried to work with autistic actors and they just ended up firing them because they were like, yeah, it's too much of a hassle. We'll just get a non-autistic person who, they don't mind the lights. And it's like, it doesn't feel like a genuine story after that, you know? Like, this is just kind
like
of
having a neurotypical play a...
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that much.
It was like Brad Williams was furious he was not cast as one of the Seven Dwarves.
I'd be probably furious too. Yeah, go on.
They didn't cast actual little people.
Yeah, I
Dwarves, sorry. Hey.
I agree with that. Honestly, no, it'd be facts though. I think everybody just wants to feel represented. Like, I think one of the best, like, well, no, I mean, whatever. Everybody just wants to feel represented. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, it's good to have, like, letter. If you want to do a kids movie, it should be directed by a neurodivergent person. You know?
Well, to be fair, neurodivergence, like, we're responsible for all the cool art, all the, the technology, and, like, these innovations weren't made because we were going out all the time and having vibrant social lives. It's like we were honing these skills because talking to other neurotypicals was difficult.
It's so draining.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I kind of just went with example. I wonder how many early YouTubers are autistic. Now that I think about it.
Probably.
Like, think about it. Like, just like to be able to stare in front of a camera like all day with nobody thought there. I think some level of like honing in to do.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned with all of the generations before us who thought they were fine and were taking it out on
what?
on their kids just because they thought they were their perception of ideas was spot on.
Yeah.
No, it's just like having these terms now.
They all there's like lead poisoning and all this other stuff affecting the gut biome and their thinking and their undiagnosed mental illness, traumas, and then.
No, yeah, it's a hot pot of just like disaster. The more I think about the olden times, the more I think about like just how much it was like, you know, if you were like autistic on the spectrum, you had like really no say in that. If you were queer, you really had no say in that. And just the way in which I remember I read something about how like I think in the 1950s a lot of women would be reported for having psychosis.
Yeah, they would just burn witches. Yeah, they call them as witches and burn them on the cross.
No, he said the 1950s. No, you're talking about the 1650s.
No, whoops, I missed it.
So the 1950s. What?
That was.
Here you go. I was just saying, like, you know, I just like society is just very oppressive, is what I'm saying.
Well, also to be fair, women at that time were like had very limited control over their lives. Like, if you were locked up in a 1950s house and forced to cook for some toxic ass husband, you'd probably be going nuts too.
It was one of those things like, you ever realize the reason why the Addams family was considered weird is because the guy didn't beat his wife? That's what made the Addams family weird in the early series. Like, oh, this is actually a healthy marriage. Like, that was actually what made them weird.
He praised his woman.
Yeah, he actually loved his wife. They were a functioning family. The thing that made them weird was just the fact that, like, oh, these are kind of they like gothic stuff, but they're a pretty well functioning family.
Yeah, I mean, that was just their niche. I mean, they're just living their life.
Exactly, you know, which is why it's just crazy that like I feel like nobody knows what to do with the Addams family proper. I'm like, just get back to its roots. It's still a good message. Depict a loving family. I promise you, people want to see that.
It definitely was.
That's why folks love Bob's Burger. If you think about it, Bob's Burger is a Modern Addams family.
Actually, Modern Family is also pretty. I've seen like some.
Modern Family is also pretty good too. With that. Modern Family's
yeah, I mean, like it didn't follow along the social norms of what a traditional family should look like.
Yeah.
But like, you know, the main character as a Phil, man, like this guy was a genius. Like he was kind and he was empathetic. He understood like his daughter. He listened to like his daughter.
Yeah.
His daughters, I think, or and then. Yeah, I mean, he's just a great guy all around.
Oh yeah. His mom, you know, the mom was Sofia Vergara, was played by an immigrant, but like I heard she gets treated pretty well in that whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, Modern Family is not a bad.
Just treat people the way they want to be treated. I mean,
that's what makes it so weird. It's like, oh my God, you're treating people like others are actually human.
Yeah.
Whoa, not just props in
That's
your
all we
life.
need.
Whoa. To go on. Back to that Nazi shit. So go on. Let's a bit to it.
1943.
All right.
Kanner outlines the signs of what would later be known as autism in an article he publishes called Autistic Disturbances of Affective Contact.
That's a long name.
And title. These symptoms described in Kanner's article are also similar to Dr. Asperger's findings. Most importantly, without the Nazi and eugenics stuff.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah, someone reached the conclusion without killing their test subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that's just baffling is that, you know, Asperger's, who was autistic, thought like, oh, these other people
he was on the spectrum too.
Was like, you know, maybe I should just whack these guys and like, you know, just off them. I'm like, what? But you're also autistic. Why would you do this?
Keep yourself safe. You know, it's to keep yourself safe. We see that all the time with like, you know. Well, I don't want to say any more than that. We see it all the time. Trust me.
Kanner and Asperger were both unaware of each other's research. That was the cool part about before the internet, is you could be making the same findings as someone and you wouldn't find out for like decades.
Yeah.
You'd think like, I'm onto something.
Yeah, I mean back then like Messenger was on like what, 5-10 business days?
Must have business months.
Yeah, months. Yeah, or something like that.
Send shit by pigeon.
Instant communication, what? I mean, y'all know.
Kanner focused on how behavioral patterns didn't fit conventional diagnoses. Toward the end of his career, Kanner said, I never discovered autism. And it was there before.
That's fair. Okay.
I love how he put that. It's like, nothing to discover. It was always there. Just...
Didn't have a word for it.
He didn't Columbus it.
That's good at least, yeah. It was always there.
He didn't just take the glory and ran with it.
Yeah, I respect that. I actually, honestly respect that, actually.
To quote Encyclopedia Britannica, the term autism is derived from the clinical description of the withdrawal and internalization demonstrated by schizophrenia patients. End quote.
I'll be honest with you, this is going to sound weird, but I feel like in my head, I think one of the reasons why maybe there was a lot more eugenics back in those days is because they genuinely couldn't tell mental illnesses apart. So imagine being grouped in with like schizophrenics. Like you are not schizophrenic, but I would imagine they don't have the mental capacity to realize, hey, like schizophrenics, autistic people, folks that have like, you know, double chromosomes, they are all grouped into the same lump. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's one of the importances of like getting the diagnosis right and doing research and getting the patient's take on it, because as we've all experienced at one point or another, the advice people give you for what you're dealing with internally sometimes just doesn't work or doesn't make sense to what you're actually dealing with.
I mean, well, yeah, I agree with that. I think most people, they impose their will on others as opposed to like just ask. Like, kind of like you said earlier, but like the moms will be like.
I usually hear autism from the parents and never from the autistic.
Exactly. You always hear from the person who's like taking care of them, but you never actually hear from the person themselves and being like, hey, it's not that hard to just listen to a person. Yeah. That said, I do think it is hard to listen to a person if they are. Tend to lash out in violent stuff. Again, like just because I'm assuming like schizophrenics were lumped into these groups. I'm not saying schizophrenic people are all violent. I'm just saying like I can see someone conflating all mental disorders with maybe one or two violent people.
Yeah,
you know.
I feel for schizophrenic people.
We gotta have one on this podcast, bro.
I'm so ignorant. The schizophrenia episode is in the works.
I am so ignorant about schizophrenia, bro.
Same, and I've had my own issues where I had disillusionments with reality because of trauma, depression, not being able to cope with like grieving people I've lost. And it was at those times where I did feel insane because I felt like the chemicals in my body were shifting polarity, and everyone was not struggling with anything I could relate to. And I had a very like Slaughterhouse-Five kind of interpretation of reality and time.
Oh wow.
Because I was drifting from the present to the flashbacks to the parallel universe my friend was alive in.
That is intense, man. That is
dissociation from reality.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that should be talked about a lot more too. Just like disassociation from reality.
Logic got that.
What?
Logic's got that.
Logic? Oh yeah, Logic the rapper disassociates from reality too. I have this thing personally where like I can't stand whispering. I have this thing where I really shut up. Please don't do that.
You know what? Oh,
like I have this thing where like I can't stand whispering because like that to me feels like I'm going crazy. I don't know what it is, but like every time you know what it is? You ever stand next to like a sewer grate and hear like the waters and stuff?
Oh yeah.
That to me, I hate that sound so much. Of just like things just that I can't tell, but they just sound like people talking, but I can't be sure.
Just make you feel like a little paranoid, perhaps. Or,
I don't know if it's paranoia, but it just makes me feel like I'm hearing things that aren't really
like
there.
Just discomfort.
Yeah, that's just general discomfort. I just don't like whispering. I just don't like whispering. You know, I don't mind like seeing people whispering from across, but if I can hear it, that bothers me. You know, I don't care if you guys are being secretive, but just don't whisper. Wow, thanks for triggering me. Oh, this guy over here. Like, man, I'm
training you for the real world.
I am in the real world.
Then when you get triggered, you'll be like, thanks, Shane.
I mean, the world's not going to be as
okay,
cool
so
as that.
I do have some good news. I do have some good news.
Yeah.
1980. Hans Asperger dies.
That's good, alright, let's go. Alright.
Hopefully painfully. Like,
and it wasn't until 2005 when they decided to remove Asperger's from the lexicon of autism.
What did they replace it with?
Oh, autism. Well, they just put it in the autism.
We'll get to the present.
Oh yeah, I'm skipping, but you know.
1981. The term Asperger's syndrome is coined by psychiatrist Lorena Wing, who brings Asperger's clinical observations to the attention of the English-speaking medical community.
Okay.
1981. Leo Kanner dies.
Who's that?
Right.
The doctor who wasn't a Nazi.
The guy who wasn't a Nazi.
Yeah, the good one.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's weird when the Austrian in the World War II story is the good guy.
Yeah. But go on.
1994. The American Psychiatric Association releases their 4th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, aka the DSM-4.
Yep.
Which sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons thing.
I'm pretty sure they also had being gay on that book as well. Like being gay was a mental disorder back then.
In this edition, Asperger's syndrome is recognized. Symptoms include challenges with socializing and communicating, strengths like unusually deep interest in a few things. Hans Asperger's active support and participation in the Nazi euthanizing of people on the autism spectrum wasn't known when Wing coined the term.
Sounds about right.
The internet really sucked back then because no one could have Googled.
Yeah, I mean,
that
that's
just
happening in the world other than like, Messenger Hawk or whatever.
When asked if she knew, Wing responded, "Nein."
Okay.
To quote autismspeaks.org, although Asperger's syndrome has been retired from use by medical professionals, some who received the diagnosis prior to 2013 still use the term and see it as an important part of their identity. Others prefer to refer to themselves as autistic. Both are correct. It is just a matter of personal choice. End quote. Today, what is called Asperger's is now diagnosed as level 1 ASD. 2013. The APA releases their new edition of the book used to diagnose autism and other mental disorders, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, aka the DSM-5, which sounds like a sci-fi anime.
I can see that.
Also, side note, Autism Speaks is a terrible organization.
Yeah, no, facts. No, I should be on that. Autism
We're
Speaks
getting
sucks.
there,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Incredible. We get there when we get.
Yeah, okay, chronologically. Let's go chronologically.
Yeah, what the fuck does Autism Speak? When does Autism Speak shows up? Like, when were they created?
Oh,
This-
you know what? Yeah, let's keep going. I'm sure. Yeah, you got the point. Let's keep going.
So, there are 3 levels on the autism spectrum disorder, and they are introduced in the DSM-5. Level 1, requiring support. Symptoms include difficulty socializing and communicating. Level 2, requiring substantial support. Symptoms include trouble socializing and communicating with increased difficulty, repetitive and restrictive behaviors noticeable to others and interfering with functioning. Level 3, requiring very substantial support. Symptoms include very limited interactions with others, minimal responsiveness to social cues, functions interfered by repetitive or restrictive behaviors. Seems easy enough to understand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, every time you level up, the boss battle just gets harder to slay.
More humane than naming him after the guy who tried to kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be like calling depressed people Big Pharma.
Well, no.
That'd be kind of funny if there was a guy named John Depression. Wouldn't that be funny?
His name
Dr. Depression. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
He could point at people, and his superpowers to make people as depressed as he wants them to.
That sounds insane.
Well, it sounds like a fun sketch. We'll do it, maybe.
That's depressing.
2015, the United States Center for Disease Control,
CDC.
aka the CDC, getting ahead of me, reading my mind. We're on that kind of comedic wavelength.
Yeah, I mean, our mind's just going super fast.
Reports prevalence of autism in children ages 3 to 17 years old is 1 in 45, the highest ever announced. By comparison, 2007's report was 1 in 150. It should be noted that these are estimates. There's no test or study that's been carried out so far that can tell us exactly what causes autism or exactly how much of the population has it. 2023, Donald Triplett dies.
Oh, that was last year.
Oh, that was last year. You're right.
What a G.
Okay.
They studied him so we could get better treatment
That's good.
for our friends in our community.
That's good.
It's a good life.
Yeah.
I think it was like 89.
Yeah. It's a long life.
Also, the most recent estimate is that autism affects 1 in 36 kids in the U.S.
I can see that.
Okay.
And that is our timeline, works cited, autismspeaks.org, Scientific America, NPR, Smithsonian Magazine, Britannica, CNN. There will be a full list of works cited on the website and posted on our social medias after each episode. If there's anything we got wrong, anything that can be improved upon, let us know in the comments section or via an angry direct message. Both work.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about
Autism
Autism Speaks.
Yeah, we should, honestly. No, they're
And
a
the-
terrible organization.
What about it?
Oh, yeah, because they're, like, they see autism as a disability, like a disease that needs to be eradicated, and they
Yeah.
want to find a cure. Like, most of their finances...
Holy shit!
Have you
A
watched?
cure
Have you watched
to,
their
like-
commercials, by the way?
Yeah, they see it as, like... Yeah, and it's a...
It's like a contagious. Dude, they have a commercial where
it's
it's like.
contagious disease.
Yeah, they have a commercial where it's just like, be careful with your kids.
It's
might
how
be-
much of an
might be
inconvenience to the
outside.
parents.
And
is.
that's
Yeah.
why I have other sources.
Yeah,
So
that's why you have us. That's why, no, there's much better organizations.
Yeah.
And also, their entire cast, or the executive board,
Yeah.
all neurotypical.
Yeah, I don't have a single autistic person represented.
And also, the CEO, if any CEO of any nonprofit is a millionaire, I have a
100%.
hard time wanting to support that.
Facts.
And, yeah.
So let's all look at the camera and say, "Fuck you, Autism Speaks."
Fuck
Fuck
you,
you,
Autism
Autism
Speaks.
Speaks.
Yeah.
Neurotypical assholes, leave us alone.
I mean, talking about Autism Speaks, I mean, that shit, they have neurotypical speaking for autism, so...
Yeah.
You know,
Facts.
if you want to support better autism networks, check out Well, there's actually a good list. I can't name it. Like, Assam. Oh wait,
We'll post it in a video afterwards.
Post it in here. But like,
So some of the good autistic advocacy organizations include ASAN, AIM, AWN, and A4A. And the traits that they'll all have in common is that they'll typically be founded by or ran by autistic people for autistic people. And they'll try to provide opportunities for autistic people with education, housing, and it's more advocation for self-advocacy. Like the focus is centered around more towards autistic kids or adults versus the caregivers or relatives of autistic people. And the traits that you often see in bad autism charities is the biggest one is Autism Speaks, which is one that still treats autism like a disease that needs to be cured. And yeah, most importantly, it's about the language they use and the symbols they still use. So here, there's a lot more list of autism organizations you could, I guess support, but typically ones that I would trust are the ones that where if you go to the website and the first thing you notice is just donating money here, or if their CEOs are multimillionaires, those probably aren't the charities you'd be supporting. And ultimately, you look at where their funding is going, and if their funding is going towards actually providing support or organizations, or if they're lobbying for disability rights, then those tend to be more helpful towards supporting autistic people and pretty much any people with disabilities. And that's what I got.
Shake that, but like, yeah, Autism Speaks is not the one to represent autism people.
So that's the beauty of the show. We're learning all sorts of new things.
Don't support them. Don't give them your money. They're evil.
You hear that, TikTok teenagers? Autism Speaks is next.
Yo, they'll go after autistics like PETA goes after animals.
So they're like the Salvation Army, sort of, where it's like they act like they mean well, but they're really Satan.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at their like financial bracket of where the money goes to, a lot of it just goes into genetic research of finding a cure for this. But for me, the thing I feel about autism is that I don't feel like I've got it as a disability. I feel like it's just part of me as a person with a different capability of perceiving this world. And I just see it as a different skill set, as a part of my identity of who I am that just makes me.
It's just neurotypicals finding another way to pretty much just like it's just another way of getting like, hey, we're uncomfortable with these people.
Yeah.
And it's like that's going to be the case. We should try to like at least.
I'm uncomfortable with neurotypicals.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, fact. Like fuck neurotypicals, 100%. I say this as one, obviously.
With their made-up rules and stuff. Like,
that's true, man. Like being neurotypical sucks.
Yeah. Y'all doing this to yourselves, man.
So, chat. After all of the history you've heard, is there anything you wish you knew about autism when you were first diagnosed that you've learned today?
There's something I knew is I was right. Most of the people are being dumb and stuff. Neurotypicals have a communication disability. That thing where they termed autism as a communication disability, nah, that's not them. It's because there's more of them. There's less of us. Y'all are backwards.
Yes. Fuck you. You're the one with the communications issues.
It's just that y'all communicate so we're wacky,
I do want to ask one.
Oh yeah, Phil. This is what your day-to-day life is. For context, Phil works with children who have disabilities. I'll let him describe it further and more respectably.
Yes, so I work as a behavioral therapist. I've been going on for about 2 years now.
Nice.
Woo! Doing the work parents don't want to do.
So, I will say that, like, visibly from what I see, like, Chai, you're pretty high on your spectrum. You're able to, like, have full-on conversations. Yes, there are nuances of natural
there's
conversation.
also nuances with like saying there's low function or high functioning as a way to just separate us even further.
I mean, yes, there is, but I have personal experience with some people who aren't as high functioning as our friend Chai here, or as any one of us in this room. And like there are moments where there does need to be like, in some cases, yes, speech pathologists and speech classes are necessary, and then also we could also have to use like an AAC device, which is basically, to dumb it down, is a iPad that you press, like the high functioning AAC devices. We've all seen them at some point.
Sure.
They're iPads that have pictures of images on them. You press the image, it's like, I want banana, and that way he can.
This sounds like a Rick and Morty thing where they give a.
No, it's I'm dead serious. I've worked with kiddos that need them, and yes, I can understand some of the conversation of where you're like, oh, part of it is like everybody using these nuanced phrases and then just expecting me to know them off the bat. Like I was supposed to have learned that at some point in my childhood. And held on to that.
Yeah.
But to a more serious note, there are some real speech barriers for some children on the spectrum that, I mean, are far beyond just nuances. It's to a certain level of just not really understanding the English language. But then, there are some situations where there are children who know their native language, right? They'll be able to have a full-on conversation in Spanish or Mandarin or whatever language their house speaks. But then even if their house speaks, say, that language or English or whatever, they still have a very hard time learning just simple English, to the point where maybe it's not even that they don't understand what you're saying, but they literally can't verbally talk to you about what they're trying to talk to you about. To a point where, you could hear something and it mean something completely different from what you thought it meant. And so I would say that in situations like that, I could definitely see why there's kind of like a distinction, right? Of, an specific autism language barrier to a neurotypical language barrier, right? Like, versus someone that has a lisp versus someone who, verbally can't function to say V's.
Yeah.
And
it's different accommodations, and it's right that they have accommodations for people who speak or like who have a harder time, like can't verbalize what's in their mind.
Right.
So, yeah.
I like that you mentioned that language component, because I'm a linguistics geek, and like I've tried learning other languages, but my brain is just so hardwired to the nuances of English that I can totally see how people trying to learn English, it is a fucked up language as far as there's all these rules and you're breaking them constantly. 4 years of honors English, I know how to use the 3 there's properly, but trying to explain how English speakers use ass and fuck in like interchangeable, very different contexts. And then also you throw in the like comfort language, because I've taught bilingual students before who are more comfortable in their native tongues. For context, I taught music for years while I was going to college in San Francisco, and many of my students were first to third generation Asian immigrants, and it was so humbling and a delight getting to work with them. And I had that where I had to shift my lexicon and use more like easily identifiable words, because my brain was naturally like reaching for music terms, and I realized, oh, I can't. That's off the table. And they were also translating for me and their parents, and I couldn't learn a language in 3 years in high school, and I was having hours a day. These kids are like 7, 12, and they're interpreting, like, and the amount of just what they had to go through to be put in that scenario. And with the, like, I also feel like I am a bit of a bridge communication-wise, because being in the special ed classes, I remember hanging out with the aides for the kids who were like level 2 or 3 with their autism, and I empathized with the kids they were working with, because I, having my own difficulties trying to communicate thoughts and ideas to other adults, to other humans, and to feel stuff so strongly, and to think you're making sense but then still get blank stares. And to your point of like, yeah, I think there's that line between, oh, it's a part of me, and then this needs help. It's not an illness, it's not a disease, but it is a chronic aspect of life that would make it easier on other loved ones to be dealt with in a medical setting, or with more social and supervised and professional help.
Right. Like my whole bringing it up is that I feel that the distinctions, though they do separate, and the more that you like shine the light on the distinctions of autism, yes, it is terrible, some of the history behind it, and I want to try to give the medical society the benefit of the doubt right now, just a little bit after everybody's death, just a little bit. That the distinctions are to try to help base services where they're most needed. Right, not that they're trying to keep everyone divided in this sense, because we know that society foundations kind of build themselves on division.
It's classification. I think
And
it helps with understanding.
And for the context, I'm not getting that like level 1, 2, and 3 classification from Autism Speaks. That's from the American Psychiatric Association.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so
Autism Speaks was just that one quote about Asperger's term getting retired. For context, the bulk of the rest of the rest of his data was like CDC, and then the personal stories were from the Smithsonian, CNN, NPR.
There you go.
So before you think like, this whole podcast was sponsored by Autism Speaks. This nerd.
No, I just want to bring it up because it's just like, behaviors and especially speech, there are just certain cases that absolutely need more hands-on.
More accommodations.
And more accommodations.
Yes.
They do need just more supervision.
Yes, and
different levels
in high school, a friend of mine, another artist, who's on the spectrum, he was taking swings at people.
Jesus.
And he was at the UCLA psychiatric ward, and I remember I got a call while I was at school, and it was pajama day. Yeah. So going to the psychiatric ward in your pajamas and not being the patient there felt kind of fun. Yeah. But it was, I remember we sang a Journey song with him, and we just tried to be like, dude, what's up? We love you. What happened? We're supposed to be at a mic together. What? Yeah.
Well, the thing is that when you're with someone who is that high on the spectrum,
for context, he was like level 1.
Right. Well, I mean, let's talk about just
there's a whole thing with like meltdowns with autism.
Right. Like, let's just talk about some cases that are more violent than others. Like,
Yeah.
let's just call it the way that it is. Like, there are some cases that are just more violent that require a different hands-on touch to just kind of help get them accustomed to a new routine. And it can just be something as simple as, you know, a certain thing was one thing. It could just be one thing. It could be like we used a different glue stick today than the regular glue stick that we usually use. It could be that, you know, instead of cheese and crackers, they got Oreo and cream dippers. It could be something as simple as that, something as just what you would feel like, oh, I didn't get this, but I got this instead. I'll make do. I'll push through. Whatever you think you're doing in that day. But that could completely halt the progression of their day to the point of frustration. And then if you tackle that with someone, or if you pair that rather with someone who has a language barrier, who doesn't, these are the most times that I've seen someone who is mostly violent. It's someone who is doesn't have very good communication for whatever reason that is. It could be a language barrier. It could just be them not really feeling like they want to open up to the people around them. It could be whatever that reason is. Their language and their communication isn't there. Something has changed about their day and they're not able to express how frustrated they are. So the only way that they can do that is physically. So they have to physically take out their frustration on something.
Jesus.
I empathize with that as someone who wrestles with anger, and I, as a kid, like, it's stuck, like even it's overwhelming as a kid no matter what your mental state is. But then having that speech boundary and not being able to, like, I was lucky that I found punk rock and outlets for that anger, or that I could hop on my bike or skate till I couldn't stand, so I wouldn't let that anger out on other things. But resorting to that primal sense of, I'm trapped, I don't know how to get the help I need. And I can't imagine how terrifying it is for them that you're trying to communicate and you're feeling all of these things and you're not sure how to understand them yourselves.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times because of language barriers, it does cause, just English language barriers cause problems for all forms of communication. When you have a language barrier where you're not really able to quite understand the human language, that includes not just talking but writing. And then you also have to think about the fact that you have some autism spectrum children who have physical deformities.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I have a cousin in my family who does have stuff like that. Like, she is autistic. She cannot function by herself.
Right. You have some that have physical deformities that hinder really their day-to-day life. And some of them could be muscular in their arms, legs, full body, or even just simply in their face, which just hinders their self-confidence, then just makes them shut down into trying to learn the English language, because they're like, you know what, forget it, I don't need to learn it. I'll just stick with this AAC device. I'm not going to try to progress further than this, because what's the point? I'm not going to, the physical therapy that it would probably take for most grown, I work with children, so I'm in a little bit of a different age group for it. So there's still time for them with a pathologist to learn those muscle techniques, to be able to learn the complications of the English language. But for, let's say, an adult who has those complications, I could definitely see where they just like, you know what, forget it, like I'm not.
How often do you see women with that? Because I have friends who are autistic women, and women get diagnosed way less than men.
I've seen a few. I've seen a few children, with some form, but even still, I will admit the ones that I've seen are higher on the spectrum, except for like maybe a handful. I've definitely.
When we say high on the spectrum, you mean like they're functional.
I mean high functional.
Be better at masking already.
Yeah, like I've seen most, children who are, little girls that are higher functioning than I've seen, higher functioning male boys. But that being said, for the last year or so, I've been working in schools with one kiddo, or maybe seeing a few kiddos in his day class. So, my sample rate is kind of limited, but from what I've learned, what I've witnessed, what I've studied, that like this is just my personal experience with it. So I just wanted to,
this is so appreciated, and I'm glad that we're getting different sides of this from someone who's lived with it, and then someone who's actively trying to help people every day with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, what I truly feel is that every kid that I've ever worked with, I try to go in there with like two goals. One, I want to make it so that they can follow a routine. Right? Whatever that routine is, whatever that looks like, try to follow a routine where they basically get a little bit of what they want, and they still have to do, they still do what is functioning for, I guess, what society is asking of them, which is school. Right? And then at the same time, I want to make sure that, that they feel like I'm not just some guy that's like, hey, don't do that, but do this. But I want to make sure that they're cool. Like, I want to make sure that they're actually having a good day at school. That makes it a little bit hard, especially with a little bit more challenging students. But for the most part, yeah, I want to make sure that they're having a good day. So, like, everybody, even though some of them may not be able to communicate as well, all of them do have their own communication. Like, they found a way to be able to communicate differently in a way where even if it's just like they're you have to really pay attention,
And
like, because they're on the lower functioning that you go, the more attention you have to give, because their hints become less, they become more subtle. Their agitation, their frustration, their anxiousness, anxiety, everything becomes more subtle until the moment where they can't take it anymore. So you have to really pay attention and be able to intervene in my position so that things are cool. So my whole thing is like creating routines so that, like, exactly what's happening when you show up at school.
Yeah. Are routines helpful to you, Shay?
Yeah, I mean, so I hate when like schedules get derailed or plans get changed.
Me too.
Also being like timely and punctuality, that's like a lot of my things where I like being regiment, but yeah, I mean, especially younger, it was a lot harder. I mean, growing older, I've learned to become, I guess, more patient, more flexible, and yeah, more understanding. No, yeah, across the spectrum of being autistic, yeah, the labels, the classifications should just be a measure of how much more accommodation you need, because ultimately any human being is just as valuable regardless of your disability. Like, being in a wheelchair doesn't make you less than. Having prosthetics doesn't make you less than.
Facts.
And these are we accommodate for people with physical disabilities. That we have like ramps, we have like ADA bathrooms, and so yeah, we could also have the same thing for mental disabilities.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
You hear that, Dr. Asperger? They matter.
Yeah. I mean, that iPad thing.
Their lives have value.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap this up. Communication's hard, but I am a huge fan of how you have learned how to communicate with the world, Chai. Your comedy is hilarious. Your poetry is insightful. Where can people find you on social media?
Oh, sure. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Chai T.
Woo.
And
Ariel, how can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Ariel51_artist.
Phil, you're trying to keep it private.
No, that's fine. Keep on
Phil's like, I'm trying to get fired.
He's got that harmonica player discretion.
That's fine.
So, I'm Shane Kenny Comedy on all social media. If you want more of this, It's Killing Me podcast. Everywhere, online, more to come. Thank you guys so much for coming. And we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right. I'm going to use your bathroom.
Yes, I also
Woo!
a little bit. All right.
Fuck yeah, guys.